Hey, HillmanTok. Welcome to session 4 of our course on Benevolent AI. Today, we'll be diving into a topic that's incredibly relevant to all of us: the growing environmental concerns around the world and how AI can step in to assist with natural disaster response and recovery efforts. As climate change accelerates, we're seeing more frequent and intense natural disasters like hurricanes, wildfires, and floods. These events put immense pressure on communities, governments, and organizations to respond quickly and efficiently. They have an even greater impact on marginalized communities like ours, which often lack the resources and political power needed to protect our neighborhoods and deliver essential support after such events. Think Katrina and Altadena. Okay, so on the agenda, first, I'll take a pulse on whether climate issues are getting better or worse by reviewing trends in frequency and intensity of natural disasters. We'll examine the human and economic tolls of these events over time and cover the policy changes being introduced today by Project 2025 that will impact this trend for better or worse. And spoiler alert, it's not for the better. Then we'll review good for you AI, machine learning tools, sensors, and robotics aiming to predict, detect, and prevent natural disasters, and ultimately coordinate immediate relief and plan long-term recovery efforts after an unavoidable disaster has taken place. Lastly, I'll quickly review the recommended homework video for you that will put this all together in a visual format. Okay, so contrary to what climate change deniers are saying, natural disasters worldwide have exhibited alarming trends, showing significant increases in both frequency, intensity, as well as economic impact. The number of natural disasters is steadily increasing each year. I think all of us can honestly attest to this in our personal lives. The weather we have now is not the weather we had as children. In 2024 alone, there was approximately 417 natural disasters worldwide. The US experienced 27 of those events, which is a 17% increase from 2020. The intensity of these events is also increasing. According to the Center for Climate and Energy, Atlantic hurricanes are getting even stronger. Since 2015, nearly 45% of all hurricanes are now considered major storms. This is more than double the low of 20% in 2008. And while scientists are currently uncertain whether there will be a change in the total number of hurricanes we experience each year, they are confident that the intensity and severity of these hurricanes will continue to increase. When looking at the human impact, we find a bright side, for now at least. The global death toll from natural disasters has declined over the past century, largely due to the improved disaster management and early warning systems put in place by countries. I said for now because as we speak, conservatives behind Project 2025 are actively trying to dismantle the very organizations responsible for managing national weather warning systems and relief efforts right here in the US. But I want to note that while the number of people who unfortunately lose their lives worldwide is relatively low, at around 86,000 in 2023, for example, the total number of people impacted by these such events are 93.1 million people in the same year, which means that they have either been injured, lost property, communities, and or their livelihoods as a result of natural disasters. That's a significant amount of people whose lives have been upended and reset within a given year. And while the human impact is decreasing due to our efforts, the economic impact has steadily increased. The US, for example, has experienced a significant rise in billion-dollar weather and climate disasters. In 2024 alone, global disasters caused $320 billion in losses, approximately 1/3 more than previous years. And only $140 billion of that was covered by insurance. This increase is partly due to the higher property values in disaster-prone areas and the escalating severity of extreme weather events. And now there is a disturbing trend in high-risk states like California and Florida, where insurance companies are refusing to cover homeowners or dropping valuable aspects of their coverage, like fire protection weeks before a wildfire and flood protection right before hurricane season, which means that homeowners are left to rebuild without any type of financial assistance. And as you can see, we're already trending in the wrong direction here, with more frequent and intense weather events that have higher economic costs, as well as insurance companies who are unwilling to pay. But Project 2025 is primed to make things even worse for us. The new administration's ultra-conservative Christian nationalist mandate has an entire section on the environment, written ironically by individuals that believe climate change is a hoax. First, it calls for the U.S. to take a step back from leading global climate change initiatives by withdrawing from global climate change councils like the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, as well as the Paris Agreement. That means we will no longer have global influence or decision-making authority on reducing climate change worldwide. Secondly, the project calls for a number of critical environmental laws to be replaced or amended, like the Clean Air Act, a federal law that regulates air emissions in order to protect public health, and the Inflation Reduction Act, which was introduced by the Biden-Harris administration in 2022 to provide tax credits, grants, loans, and other incentives to manufacturing and energy companies who reduce carbon emissions by investing in clean energy alternatives. How anyone can see this as a bad or unworthy incentive and proactively attempt to end it is truly mind-boggling to me. Nevertheless, Project 2025 is trying to do exactly that. Next, Project 2025 encourages the privatization of critical environmental and disaster relief functions, like the National Weather Service that provides weather forecasts and warnings to protect people and property across the country, currently being managed by scientists at the National Atmospheric and Oceanic Administration, as well as national flood insurance programs managed by FEMA, which is a government-backed insurance program that helps protect property owners from flood damage. With private insurance companies now canceling critical aspects of insurance, as well as the privatization of FEMA-backed flood insurance programs, homeowners will truly be vulnerable if they ever encounter such a disaster. They would be left to pretty much fend for themselves. With Project 2025 calling for NOAA as well as FEMA functions to be turned over to private organizations, citizens would no longer have access to this critical free information. Instead, it will be gatekept behind private company fees and only accessible to those who can afford it. Additionally, the Conservative Manifesto suggests major changes to the Department of Homeland Security and FEMA by moving many of the current disaster relief functions to local governments, which ironically means that poorer states, which tend to be red states, would have lower budget for relief efforts. Given the limited budgets and local politically and racially charged administrators, one can only assume that Black residents would fall far down the priority list, which is why we need to begin organizing our own local, state, and national support and relief efforts for our own community. Lastly, this current administration, full of the ultra-wealthy, has prioritized corporate interests and profits over the environment by doubling down on fossil fuel and taking a drill baby drill approach to energy instead of investing in natural or clean energy alternatives. For those unfamiliar, when burned, fossil fuels release large amounts of carbon dioxide, which traps heat in the atmosphere and contributes to climate change and global warming. Alternatives to fossil fuel, which are cheaper, cleaner, and more sustainable, are not being invested in, like solar, wind, and nuclear power. But here's the good news, guys. Artificial intelligence is emerging as a powerful tool that can help us offset some of this foolishness in order to save lives, minimize damage, and speed up recovery in our communities. From predicting weather disaster patterns to coordinating emergency responses, AI could be a game changer for us. In the next 2 slides, we'll explore some real-world examples of how AI is already making a difference and discuss how it can play an even bigger role in the future. First, let's look at how AI can be used to predict and prevent wildfires. So I'll try to keep this as non-technical as possible. But what we have here on this a little semi-complex looking slide is a high-resolution deep learning wildfire prediction tool. Essentially what that means is it's a powerful computer model that predicts where and how wildfires might start and spread. These models use detailed satellite images and other environmental information to give accurate predictions, helping to identify areas most at risk of wildfires. Using this, environmental protection agencies could authorize controlled burns to lower the risk and prevent future wildfires. Also, AI sensors exist that, when placed strategically on trees or in grounds of a wooded area, could catch a fire in early stages and trigger a series of actions to notify authorities and put out the fire before it causes any widespread damage. If we're thinking of this in an integrated way, we could use AI to build fire-resistant homes like the 3D printed concrete ones described in the previous session with fire-resistant glass windows, and then use AI to identify and predict wildfires that may occur in the surrounding area and take preventive actions like controlled burns to reduce the risk. And if this does, and if one does start, it will trigger a series of events to notify fire departments, homeowners, shopkeepers alike, while simultaneously setting off sprinklers at each of the homes. While far out there, this is the type of end-to-end thinking that we need moving forward, especially given that we cannot control the weather or what those currently in office are doing. Another example of this is AI prediction and prevention tools for hurricanes. Companies like Google already have AI machine learning modules that predict occurrence and behavior of extreme storms like hurricanes by processing large amounts of weather data quickly that allow it to make detailed and accurate predictions about the evolution of weather patterns, including the formation and trajectory of hurricanes. It can model atmospheric phenomena over large regions in real time. So if we have a phenomena like a hurricane that changes course quickly in the way that Hurricane Helene did, these AI tools could notify local officials and residents in the new path of destruction so that they can evacuate immediately, thus reducing casualties. This ability to detect and recalibrate in real time is truly the advantage that AI offers. Because as we know, many of the recent storms and fires have been unpredictable, irrational, and seemingly intensify quickly. So nature is not giving us a lot of time or pre-warning for these events. There is also the very real concern of weather warfare, i.e. cloud seeding and weather modification, or the use of EMPs, which are intended to surprise us in order to cause maximum damage. An EMP, which stands for an electromagnetic pulse, is a burst of electromagnetic energy that can be caused by natural or human-made events. These EMPs damage critical infrastructure and endanger human lives. Natural EMP events, or geomagnetic disturbances, are caused by solar storms. Solar storms are when plasma from the sun interacts with the Earth's magnetic field, causing solar flares. Massive solar flares can cause a surge of energy in the atmosphere that can knock down power grids. I know we've heard a lot about this on social media and among conspiracy theorists lately, but this is a real thing. While we can predict when a solar flare will happen by monitoring solar spots and activities, it's harder to predict the impact that it will have once it reaches us. And we are currently in a solar maximum right now until about 2026, I believe, which means more potentially disruptive solar activity. And there's also human-made EMP events, which are high-altitude nuclear explosions, which can create EMPs that starts fires or destroy electronic devices over a wide area, causing damage to infrastructure that we depend on, like electrical grids, communication equipment, water and waste systems in our transportation system. Disruption of power means no cell phone service or emergency services in the affected area. Due to a massive scale of damage across multiple industries, AI would be critical in coordinating recovery efforts and administering aid to those sitting in the dark without food, water, heat, in any way to contact anyone or go anywhere for help. In this situation, time is of the essence, as people will not survive long without these basic essentials. Given that each of these disasters, both natural and man-made, are much more likely to happen today than in previous years, and the fact that environmental and governmental protections are being actively eliminated, we as a community would greatly benefit from our own local, state, and federal disaster response and recovery networks. And as the title of this course implies, I believe that AI could be our greatest asset in accomplishing this. In addition to analyzing large data sets, as mentioned, it allows for faster and more efficient decision making during disaster situations, including using sensor networks and satellite imagery to survey affected area, allowing for rapid assessment of damage and needs. It can also be used for resource allocation, utilizing AI algorithms to efficiently allocate emergency personnel, relief supplies, and equipment based on the most critical needs in an affected area. We can also use it for search and rescue operations by employing drones with AI-powered vision systems to locate survivors in disaster zones, especially in hard-to-reach areas. And we can ultimately utilize AI combined with robotics to help search for survivors, assess damage, and deliver supplies during natural disasters. Robots powered by AI can search through debris, locate survivors, and identify hazards. They can also map damaged areas, deliver medical supplies and other supplies, evacuate casualties, and remove rubble from large areas and assess the extent of damage. This means that we don't have to send human responders in, which would put them at risk. We could actually leverage robots in order to do the recovery and to deliver aids in these very, very critical situations. AI can also be used to facilitate better communication between emergency responders, government agencies, and the affected community through various platforms and apps, like the one you see here. Finally, AI can be used to analyze post-disaster imagery to rapidly identify critical infrastructure damage and prioritize repair efforts long-term to ensure that we build back better. And what AI can't do now, I'm confident that we can program it to do in the future. But I think this is a good starting point for us, establishing our independence and building an efficient and effective network of disaster recovery and relief efforts, specifically for our community as things increase in natural disasters and also the potential of terroristic threats. Okay, so I have a video recommendation for you, which gives you a visual of the type of AI human partnership I just described in a natural disaster situation. It's 12 minutes, but interesting, and will hopefully get your imagination going with the possibilities. You can find the link to this video in the email newsletter that I sent you. So be sure to watch that. All right, so that concludes our session for this week. See you back next week for week 5, where we discuss how benevolent AI is being deployed in the medical field. Until then, stay safe and stay blessed. Bye.